Happy New Year and welcome to the Find and Follow podcast, where we are all about helping you find and follow Jesus in your everyday life. We're back in 22. We made it. Here we are. Even on a snowmageddon kind of day.
Barely made it.
Kyle, Craig, and I, and our guest, Sarah Cottam. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for getting the dog sled team out today and joining us. But we were just talking beforehand. It's just called Winter in Spokane.
Exactly.
It snows.
But it's not always this much snow.
No, we're
consecutive. I mean, the fact that, and it's supposed to snow all day and then tomorrow.
Yeah, it's legit, but it's
But it's Spokane.
It's Spokane.
It is Spokane.
You shovel your driveway, you drive, you whatever you need to do to get to where you're going.
Or you don't shovel your driveway and you just deal with it.
I know.
I am going snowboarding tomorrow though, for sure. It's happening.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Stay in bounds. Don't go to
the avalanche
areas. There have been people.
Yeah.
I just heard in the news about a guy that was in bounds. He didn't go to, but
on Schweitzer.
Yeah, and he spent the night there, and they found him the next morning.
Yeah. He was in bounds, but North Pole, and if you know that terrain, it's kind of out of bounds-esque. There's tons of trees, and you can get stuck between stuff. Or I've been upside down, like on a groom trail, went and caught the edges. I slipped, fell, went upside down in a tree well. You know, trees can just make a big deep. Yep. And I was upside down with my skis still on. That was one of the most scariest moments I've had with skis on.
Yikes.
Yeah. Snow's starting to come in on you. You can't really
dangerous. Still a little dangerous.
Suffocating.
So,
snow,
well, and then there's that time you and Josh went down through out of bounds over Snoqualmie, and he ended up hitting his head and had a concussion. That's a whole nother story.
That's a whole. We need to get him on the podcast for that. We need that kind of time for that. But we're back, and I know people are dying to hear about Family Olympics as one of our laying hands traditions at Christmas time. Craig was a champion, and Scott was a champion.
I like how you lead with that. So,
right?
You're trying to say you guys did good, but you didn't win.
On the individual sports, were you not an individual sport winner?
Cindy and I dominated in darts.
There you go.
And you dominated.
That's a good alliteration.
Was it pool or shuffleboard?
Shuffleboard. Amy and I were shuffleboard superstars.
That's cool. So overall, you did not win.
We had fun, so we felt like that was a win.
Oh, yeah.
Keyword was.
You notice how he's avoiding the question?
Champion.
Exactly. No,
yeah,
he's
Ben and
deflecting.
Amanda took the trophy
if
home
he had
to
won, he would not be deflecting. Oh, yeah. Well, my dad did really good at darts. He would be like, yeah, we crushed everybody.
We barely lost. It really was tight to the end.
It was very tight. But when Cindy and I realized that we couldn't win, just statistically in the brackets, it just wasn't going to happen, we started rooting for Scott and Amy because Jeremy and Neri weren't going to win either. We could tell that. So
have Jeremy and Neri ever won?
Yes.
They did.
Came up on a memory. It was like 9 years ago. It was their only win.
One time, yeah.
Yep.
So
everybody's won because Craig and Cindy won last year.
Yep.
So everybody's
Their first
won.
year?
That was our first year.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Nobody ever gave us a chance.
What do you mean didn't give you a chance? It's your house. House rules your games.
No,
I think you didn't give yourself a chance.
people's attitudes, it's like, oh, they'll never win.
Yeah.
In fact, even you guys would say that from time. Oh,
because we were watching you play.
Yeah, because you never had won.
Hey,
there's a thing.
There was at least 1 year I know we came in second.
Yeah.
And we would win some events.
I like how you guys are really hyping up the fact that, we won a game. It was really close. We came in second. You lost.
Correct. We lost. I'll say it. Okay. I lost. We lost.
Well, one of us
wasn't
was
a
in
blowout.
fourth place. That's not bad.
Were you in fourth place? Or
No,
did you?
I think that was Jeremy and Neri, wasn't it?
We kind of just keep track of who wins. But it gets pretty competitive.
Of course, fourth place is
if
also
people are
last
unaware,
place.
Sarah, I don't know if you're aware, we do step it up. So we play pool, shuffleboard, like table. You have a
I've seen the bracket.
You've seen the bracket.
Have you?
Ping pong, darts. And it's not like, hey, we're just going to casually play. Like, we play a ton of games as a family at Christmas. Like, let's play cards, play dice, whatever. But when it comes to Olympics, it is game on. Like, people get nerves and get sweaty. Everyone wants to do well. It's like 2 hours of pretty intense competition. So
a little bit of a strain on some marriages, let's just say that.
Pretty good recently.
How many years have you won, you and Amy?
We were trying to put it together because my little brother, Ben, if you're listening, he was trying to tout how many times he's won out of 13 or 14. So we can't remember. It's at least 2, but more than 3.
Yeah, I think it's 2.
So
and we've
they've
been
won
doing
most.
it for 13 or 14 years.
Yeah. So we've won 2, you won 1. So out of 13 years, they probably won 9. So that's why we all are against them.
And that's where the debate is. I saw
Okay.
that he posted on social media. It's 9 or 10. So there's a debate there.
Yeah, because
we can't remember if the first Christmas we were in the house, if we did Olympics or not, because the whole downstairs was unfinished. It was a different era, and I don't know. This
We
has
don't
kind
keep
of been
good
an evolving
records.
thing. Yeah.
We should have a record
Yeah, we
book.
should have an almanac.
It's like the Olympics where you can go back. We really should, just for fun. Anyways, now the little kids that are bigger, they play their own Olympics, play pool against each
Yep.
other.
Cousin
Copying.
Olympics.
Surprise, not surprising. What do you guys do for Christmas as a family? Sarah, just to get to know you a little bit here.
We do not have a tradition that we do. However, this year we went to New Orleans, and just randomly we ended up booking a cruise to go to Mexico, and then instead of flying back, we're on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, we're like, let's just rent a house on the bayou, and that's exactly what we did.
Oh my goodness.
Yep,
Awesome.
rented a house, and so we did a week on the cruise, and then we stayed a week later. So we were gone for 2 weeks this
Oh
year.
wow.
Yeah.
Was that
Sunburn, came back to Winter Wonderland.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So what was the weather Christmas Day for you?
It was 82.
Wow.
And muggy?
Yeah, no, it was beautiful.
Oh, was
and
it?
I mean, yes, humidity and all that. A little bit, can you tell on my face a little bit? No?
I didn't push record on the camera. Should I go push the record on the camera?
I could.
You can go push that.
Yeah, we're good. Though.
We got so much technical stuff here.
I thought you
That's all right.
did.
So if
you did?
Oh, I did. Oh,
Look.
good. All right.
Well,
Hey,
I mean,
first one back. Sorry, it just hit me like people on YouTube would have had a graphic of us.
Well,
for
while we're at
Yeah.
it
12 minutes.
and double checking,
So-
did you push record at the?
Oh yeah, that
soundboard?
one's rolling.
Okay.
We're good. So
So that was this year. Okay, and normally I'm like the party planner. If anyone knows me, that's what I love to do. I love organizing. I love parties. So I will throw probably 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 white elephant parties with my different friends and families throughout the Christmas season. So that's what I like to do. And then after we just left and went to New Orleans, I go, I think I'm going to be leaving for Christmas now. So I think that might be our new tradition.
okay.
I did get home and book a cruise for next Christmas already.
Oh wow. Where'd you guys go on your cruise?
So we went out of New Orleans to Cozumel and Costa Maya.
Okay. And
Yeah.
And is that something you would do again? Was that a good?
That was a
Cruise
really good one.
experience?
Yeah, I don't like the 5-day. I'm a 7-day plus now. I think I'm like elevated, graduated, moved up. Because you spend so much money going, it's like you might as well be as long as you can.
Right.
So we booked. We're going out of Long Beach and we're going to Mazatlan, Puerto Vallarta, and Cabo.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's
Well,
what I'm doing next.
that's not a
might,
bad
might be a thing
tradition
now.
to start
Yeah.
there.
Might be a thing.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
That is
Awesome.
fun.
We did Christmas one time in Orlando.
We did.
So and it was kind of rainy a little bit. I remember off and on. And
Yeah, a little bit.
We went and saw your mom
On Christmas Day, yeah.
outside of
Yeah.
Orlando. But it was weird to be in Florida in like Disneyland and
Yep.
60s
Sun.
or 70s sun, and you're like, there's no snow, and this is not
Yeah.
the right terrain. It was kind of different Christmas experience. It
I
didn't
don't.
feel.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if I've ever not done Christmas in Spokane, Washington.
Yeah.
Even when I was in college, I'd come back home. I don't think I've ever not been home for Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's normally cold and snowy.
Yeah.
And
Well, and the good thing is my little brother flew down with his son, so we had more family. I brought a little pop-up tree. I tried to do a little.
okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, I brought it with, and so it was good. It was so good.
You
That's fun.
think just like Cindy when we did that Orlando trip and we were there for Christmas. Cindy brought little short trees,
Yep.
one for each of the boys, and little tiny ornaments and presents just to make
Right.
the hotel room seem a little
Yeah.
bit
Make it-
like Christmas.
Yeah, make it feel like it. And on the cruise, they do a whole Christmas theme. There's trees all over, decoration. You could write a letter to Santa. So I tried my hardest to, and make it Christmassy, Jesus, all that. But really, we're on vacation too.
But
Yeah.
the question our listeners
for
want
2
to
weeks,
have
that's awesome.
The question our listeners want to have an answer to is: did you write a letter to Santa? And if you did, what did you ask for?
Oh, so I did not.
What about Matthew?
No, no
Matthew's
no.
your
Well,
husband, and then-
Well, yes, Matthew's my husband, and my 2 sons, Nathan and Lucas. But he could have dropped a letter in the lobby area. That's a good point. I don't know.
You better check.
He probably
But
asked
he
for a
didn't get
cruise
anything,
next
though.
year.
He's already got next
he was
year's
ahead
Christmas
of,
present.
Yeah, he
'cause
was
that's
ahead of the
been
game.
booked.
He was like, next year I want a cruise.
Well, even better, how we even paid for this one. I'm big. Every dollar has a name. I love it. I financially budget out everything. So last year, I won both of my fantasy football leagues. Okay, And then my husband won one of his. So we won $1,800 last year.
Wow.
I mean, not
Holy
to say
mackerel.
what, but so that's what paid for the whole cruise. So that last year paid for our cruise this year. So it was paid out outright.
So
for
fantasy
Christmas.
football season's over for this year. So did you guys win
Yeah,
again?
so I lost horribly. I didn't even make it to the playoffs. And then I had to give up the bell. It was all sad. But he came in second on one of his, which the winnings paid for him to play for free. So I mean,
Okay.
Not gambling is not really. I don't know if that's supposed to be on here, but I'm human. I know.
Right? Yeah, everybody likes to gamble. Anybody who says they don't, and then they're like, "Oh, I went to my kid's school and did a raffle." Oh, that's gambling.
Just saying.
You know, like
you
at the
know-
church, I bought a ticket for a basket at Halloween one year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gambling. That's raffling.
And I,
Oh, I just
when we
considered
first-
a donation. Okay.
When we
Anyway.
first moved to Wilbur, I got an education about gambling. So gambling sort of has this stigma, and I understand there's an irresponsible side to that and an addictive side. So I'm not
Amen.
going to minimize that. But this idea that I bought a raffle ticket or a lotto ticket, so I'm a gambler. It's an unnecessary and inaccurate stigma. The farmers in Wilbur pointed this out to me. They said, "You want to talk gambling?
Oh, yeah, their whole
They
livelihood.
take out a loan in order to plant the crop. All the seed and the equipment and the fuel, everything, operating expenses, and they don't know until it's harvest time whether or not that's going to pay off.
right.
And it's tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. Talk about gambling. They're gambling with a crop every year, and they said, to buy a lottery ticket or to gamble $10 is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket compared to what we do on a regular basis to provide for our families.
That's right.
And sometimes they lose. Sometimes it's not good, and sometimes it's great. It's gambling.
Yep. Absolutely. And it, like the way we look at it too, and addiction is a huge part of my story, and I'll share that here in a little bit. But it's we're paying for entertainment, right? Like at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's fun. I mean, I love
Exactly.
football. So and if I get a cruise for free,
And there's a huge
Cruise for free.
difference
Yeah,
between
and you're
entertainment.
budgeting. You're going, hey, I know that, if I lose this $20, $50, $100, I budgeted that out.
fun
It's
money.
my fun money. It's
Correct.
like, hey, we're
Go to a
gonna
movie,
go.
man. How much
Yeah,
you gonna
I'm gonna
pay?
go to a movie, or I'm gonna go put $20 down.
yeah.
Hey, speaking of gambling, we all took a risk getting in our cars and coming here today.
Right?
Oh, hey,
And the
that's
roads
true.
are treacherous. Seriously,
Yeah,
that's
that's
a
true.
gamble.
So one more thing I just
Okay.
have to share since we're already on, everyone's going to hear. So the other reason I booked the cruise, so we all know for next Christmas,
Is because you want to take all of us with you.
let's go. Let's go. I'll
A
send
cruise
you.
for you
I'll
and a
send you
cruise
the
for
bill.
you.
And I'll do the work and
I see.
organize.
Okay.
And so the other cool thing is we our flight got canceled. So again, if you fly, right, weather, whatever this whole virus thing we want to talk about is, our flight got canceled on a Monday night in New Orleans. So we got rebooked on Tuesday morning. Well, to make, first of all, lemonade out of some lemons, the only Monday night football game going on was in New Orleans. We went to the Superdome and went to the Miami versus Saints game.
Oh, let's
That's
go.
awesome.
No big deal. So that was cool.
That's
so then I
awesome.
get back a couple days later and I'm calling for my husband's Rapid Rewards, booking another trip, but we won't say that one. And I'm like, hey, our flight got canceled. I don't know what you guys could do. We ended up spending a couple extra $100. And she goes, yeah, we don't reimburse for incidentals, but let me see what we could do. So I get on hold. She jumps back on. She goes, yeah, I can give you guys $200 each credit through Southwest. So we ended up getting $800. And then my brother doesn't fly, so I got his as well. So I paid for our flights for next year for the cruise.
There you go.
Excellent.
Oh, man.
So anyway,
This-
anyway,
people
it's like meant
listening
to be.
are, who's this lady?
Yeah.
And does she book for me? Can I get her?
Oh yeah.
You might have
travel
another
agent.
career as a
509.
travel agent. Have you ever considered opening your own agency, travel
That's-
agent?
That's so funny. So I get that asked a lot in event planning.
Because that's what you do for a living currently.
Currently,
I mean,
exactly.
you're
But Monday through
organizing
Friday.
people.
Right?
Yeah,
So the
not-
reason why I would never do it is nights and weekends. I get paid to do what I love. I am in love with my job. I can't even believe God has blessed me with this. It's so amazing. And I feel like I'm operating in my gift.
Right.
Like that's the other thing. Like
Yeah, you're in your sweet spot.
I am. And so I'm like, no.
Yeah. You don't need.
But I'll do it for free because I love it and I want people to experience what I've experienced.
Yeah, you don't need that phone call from someone in New Orleans on a Monday night going, "Hey, they just rescheduled us. What do we do?" And it's
mad about it.
Yeah, mad.
Don't know
and
how
they're
to make
call-
lemonade.
Yeah, you go
They
to the
don't-
game and then you get $400 from Southwest. That's what you do, people.
8.
Oh, 8.
There was 4 of us.
All right, that's true. But anyways, back to gambling. I was just
Yes.
going to point out, like, it happens all throughout the scriptures in a really like Jesus way. When Judas wasn't a disciple anymore because he was not around, they needed to replace him, and they had criteria for people who had been with Jesus all along. And then Acts 1:26, they cast lots.
That's what they did.
Like they drew straws or they threw a dice. Like they casted lots. like priests in the Old Testament, they casted lots to see
Yeah,
what God wanted to do.
it was a common practice in the Old Testament. That's the only New Testament example that we have. Not that it didn't go on other times, but yeah, that's exactly what. And it's a little unclear exactly what casting lots is. I've read lots of different comments, and I don't think they know for sure exactly what it is that's going on, but it's like drawing straws.
Yeah, they were trusting Jesus. They were like, okay, God, who do you want us to pick? Here's 2 qualified dudes. We could go with either one. It's not a bad choice, but it's just kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny, like, you meet like a real spiritual person when they say it. Like, I was talking to my buddy who was at YWAM. Jared was doing stuff, and so they were in class trying to figure out who was going to present first and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, we casted lots." I was like, "Bro,
did they call it that?"
Yeah, I was like, "Yeah,
Oh, okay.
We casted lots to see who preached."
What
first.
they do? Put names in a hat? And
Yeah,
draw 'em out?
exactly. I'm like, you just
Pick
randomly selected, but it was really spiritual because they prayed over it and they casted lots. I was like,
Oh my gosh.
bro, you picked a
I think
name
that's
out of
what
a
you
hat.
do at YWAM. So, the other thing that happened at Christmas was we went sledding a ton.
Oh,
And,
boy.
Yeah. Did you get out? Did you get any snowboarding in or sledding?
I have a cheaper pass, so I can't go
you're on
snowboarding
the
over the
blackout.
break.
Yeah, that's
but I
right.
did sled. I went sledding with you.
That's true. So one of the coolest things is when we get this much snow, the private road above your house freezes over, and it's just a sheet. So we bust out the radio flexi flyers from 1985.
We've
whatever.
had them since you kids were little.
Yeah, from
40 years ish.
well, I'm not that
30,
old.
35.
Not that old.
Ish.
At least
Well,
35.
You're
Ish.
pushing 50, aren't you, Scott?
Negative. Anyways, so we hike up the private road and then we just sled down the road, and it is a hoot. It is so fun. Because we go up, the road's like 2 miles long, so we hike up about a mile, and there's a stretch, and so I threw my GPS on because you know numbers you want to know. There's a stretch that's super steep. Then you hit a corner and you literally like drifting. Like Tokyo drift around the corner.
Tokyo.
So I had Olivia on my back. It's the old school metal runner one with the wood, top. Like you
So you're
just
down low to the
classic
ground. Yep.
sled.
On
So you lay on
face
your
down.
belly.
Yep.
And then Olivia's laying on top of me. Yeah, we all had kids because we only had 3 sleds.
And the road's going by at 20, how many?
25.
25,
Got to 25 miles an hour, which is awesome when your face is 4 inches from the ground. It's pretty fun. So that's awesome. But we used to do that when we didn't have a hill in our old neighborhood, and we had a Pontiac 6000 sedan. And
You're
Craig
not gonna tell this
Craig
story.
would hook up a
You're
rope to
not
the
gonna
back
tell
of the
this story.
car when we first got him. So we were like 8 and 9 years old, and he would throw a rope out the back, and he would tow us around the neighborhood, and we would drive. I can't imagine doing this right now with my kids. We're idiot kids, and you got in trouble one time because we were driving or hit a corner, and we drifted out, and there was an oncoming car. And we're being towed behind the car, and we almost got killed. And so we end up back at the house.
That's a little bit of an exaggeration.
You
but
weren't
yeah.
on the sled, Craig. Let's just say that. Like from 4 inches off the ground when you're looking at underneath side of a car.
It's like you come around the corner and you swing a little
just
wider
way
than you thought.
wide.
And just to be
or we're
clear-
It could have been us driving way wide because you could steer it, right? So
And
responsibility
there were
on
no
both
speeds
parties.
approaching 25 miles an hour. This is much slower.
I'm sure it was like 50. Anyways, we got back to the house. I think you had to have a conversation with an officer.
We didn't even get back to the house.
Didn't get back to the house.
So one of the neighbors called, and the sheriff showed up, and then another sheriff showed up. So there's 2 cars, lights are flashing. They have me pulled over in my neighborhood, about a block and a half from the house, and they come up and they just give me the riot act. It's just like, sir, do you realize how dangerous you are? And that whole thing, and then they go back to their cars, and then they are conferring for the longest time, and I'm thinking, this is not going to end.
Gonna
well.
get a ticket.
They came back. I did get a ticket, but they came back and they told me, they said, we are going to give you a ticket for negligent driving, which is a misdemeanor, but we could have given you a ticket for
Child endangerment or
something like that,
yeah.
which is
Kinda what I was
which
thinking.
is a much
Felony,
more
yeah.
serious thing. And we were debating whether to go that way or not. And part of the reason, and then he explained to me, he said, part of the reason that they're all over it at that particular time, particularly serious about it, is there had been somebody in a parking lot being pulled on a sled, got killed like a few days before that, and a couple of other things like that. So they were really clamping down on, irresponsible parents and idiot kids.
Yeah.
Irresponsible.
I mean, who hasn't ski jogged behind a school
Way to
bus
throw that one.
before? Or a car?
A school bus.
Yeah. I never did a school bus.
I was gonna say.
You ever saw kids do it behind the school bus? Anyways, it happens in my neighborhood all the time. 4-wheelers come out and kids are flying down the
Yeah,
road.
we live in Idaho. There's different rules over there.
Yeah. Like my kids are at school today. Normal time to show up.
Well, so were East Valley kids. They
Yeah.
didn't close.
Are they really?
No, they're an hour and a half late.
Well, but they
yeah,
didn't close.
They didn't close.
Yeah.
So, anyways, a lot of that. But Sarah, we have you on as a guest. It's helpful for hear different voices, not just like how to beat the travel program.
I mean, hey.
Like, yeah, you should start a blog or something.
Travel hacks.
Oh man, that would be awesome. But your story, we love to have people on just share their story of how they found Jesus and help others hear that, connect to that, maybe help someone that they know too. But so, how did you find Jesus?
Okay, so let's see. I'll start just a little history, kind of where I came from. I did not grow up in the church at all. I come from a pretty long line of addicts, like I shared a little bit ago. Addiction is a huge part of my story. My mom has been using hard drugs the majority of my life and trying to get sober and use and get sober and use. And so when she would get sober, she would move across the country, basically. So we would move every 6 to 8 months. In my life, I've been to 13 schools in 12 years. And in high school, I went to the same high school. Well, I got kicked out for smoking weed, but we'll get to that. So we just moved all over. My mom was an addict my whole life. And then
Were you like from Spokane area? Would you come back here?
Yep, I was born in Spokane.
Okay.
Yep, and then when I was 4, that was the first time we moved-ish. When she started getting pretty bad, we moved to California. Yep, and so and then my dad, he was an alcoholic, and he used drugs. He actually brought the hard drugs way back before I was even born to my family. He knows my mom and all 5 of her brothers, like, just a horrible thing, right? Like, nothing where you're not the nice, positive stories of childhood. So that's where I came from. Like, I grew up in that environment, and as a kid, I didn't really know that. Like, I just thought we moved all the time. That's something that my mom, I would say, maybe on the days where she was more like smoking weed and was like, powwow, let's sit together and let's talk about our feelings. Like, I think she did a really good job at a lot of things because I look in the mirror and I love who I am, right? Like, I think she did well. But then there was things where I'm like, oh, that happened. And I had to process that later in my life, right? So anyway, we moved back here and I went to high school, started drinking and smoking weed myself. Again, no God, no nothing at all. Briefly, we went to a Methodist church just because they had fun activities at a gym, right? So everybody who has a gym is pretty cool. Dodgeball is like the best thing ever. So we'd go there, and then I started liking boys, and that's why I went. It's because there was boys there. Like,
yeah, that's natural.
Common,
we
right?
All went, everybody that's
Everybody has
gone
that
to
story.
a youth group is like, yeah, because there's people there.
That's why we
I
did it.
like. Were your parents together this whole time?
No,
Okay.
I always joke. My parents were together 2 days, me and my brother. Like,
Right. Okay.
No, they weren't. They were together, I think, for a few years when we were younger.
Craig just laughed like he just got it.
No, I'm trying not to laugh out loud.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
And
No, it's a joke.
I
You
was
can laugh out
debating in
loud.
my head whether to make a comment and a smart aleck remark.
You're welcome.
And then my mom met my little sister's dad. So I have a little brother who's 14 months younger than me and a sister who's 22 months younger than him. So we're really close in age and really close period. So did all that and then kind of went to youth group a little bit here and there and then, never knew, like didn't know it. And then I get into high school, drinking and smoking weed was like my thing, right? That's where I found connection. That's where I found people. That's where I'm a pretty, I'd say, outgoing. I already said loud. I'm a loud person. I don't know if I was that much younger. I think I developed those skills. Moving every 6 months in school, it's either if you're going to show up at a new school and you want any friends, you better either be able to be okay to be aggressive or you're going to get eaten alive. And so I think I developed those along the way. So I'm okay with that skill set. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It's serving you really well.
I mean, hey. And so then in high school, though, I found people because I was there to stay now. Now I didn't care if my mom wanted to get sober and move away. I was over that. Like, I was there to stay. I felt like I could stay if I wanted now. I can get emancipated, all those things that went through my head. And I found these great girls who I'm still friends with today, which is kind of cool. And this community, but with drinking and smoking weed. That's all we live for. It's everything we did. No Jesus, no God, no nothing. And then my whole family, like I shared, my mom was on hard drugs. And methamphetamines was what they all did, my whole family. So at this point, mom has 5 brothers, every single one of them out in a different capacity, meth cooks, all this horrible, ugly stuff. And that was the environment we lived in. And
so in high school, are you thinking, hey, there's other families that do it different than we do? Or was it still like, oh, this is just way families function?
yeah, this is way, yeah.
Like, doesn't everybody have uncles that are cooking meth?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, sort of. I think once I started drinking like heavily all the time and weed, I didn't really care anymore that was my life. I was like, now I think that's just because what I found, and not to say my mom and everybody wasn't a family. Like, we had a family which was dysfunctional, but I found my own dysfunctional family that was me, that I was able to find. And so then I graduated, and I was going to go to the Navy, actually, was what I wanted to do. I was like, yeah, because I'm thinking, I don't know what So anyway, I went down, I had a recruiter, I had all the things, I did the test, I did all that, and then I graduated high school, and I was going to go. And I did cocaine. So I never did hard drugs before that. I did cocaine, and I did it every single day for 3 months straight. And within those first couple weeks, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm 17 years old. My mom would have to sign for me to go to the Navy. I got the rest of my life. No, I think doing coke's a better idea. And in those stupid moments, that's what I decided to do. So I dropped out of everything, made horrible, ugly decisions, lost all my friends. So even though I'm friends with those same girls now, did ugly, horrible stuff we don't want to say on camera.
Right.
And so I lost all that life, and then I ran and was like, oh, I'm just going to do hard drugs.
So how did you get to cocaine? Did someone introduce you to it?
Yeah,
one of your other friends?
In the party world, people were doing it the whole time in high school. I just never touched it because knowing my whole family was a bunch of junkie, dope fiend people, I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. If I do that, then that's what I'll end up being. So there was, knowing now, was it God? Was it some cool protection that I had over me to never try that and experience that in high school? I don't know.
Did you feel like you needed to finish high school and
Oh, absolutely.
doing the hard drugs was going to be
absolutely
take you off the track? But once you got done, you're like, oh, it's okay if I just try some cocaine because I'm post high school.
Absolutely. And in high school, it came so easy. So I had straight A's just by showing up.
Yeah.
So I knew, like, there was something inside me where I knew, and I had these great friends, and I thought I was going to go to the Navy, or then for a second I was going to move to California and get away from my family, go to college. So I knew I needed to graduate. Yes.
So that was the motivator. And I mean, you're intelligent, but you're also hustling, right? Were you in high school, right? Because I mean,
yeah.
I know you now in the last 5 or 10 years, and you always are hustling, working hard. Whether it's party planning or planning next year, but at work or with people and friends. So I'm sure that was true because that's part of your hardwiredness.
In high school. I worked one of my cousins. I went and I would clean his house. He was a weed dealer or whatever, but I cleaned his house and poop or scoop because he had like 15 pit bulls. No joke, but I would make as much weed as I wanted and always had cash in my pocket all through high school. Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
Was that good? I don't know. But it did teach me, again, like, I love the work. I am a hard worker, but I love it. It fills my tank. I love it.
You and I have a lot of things in common, including that last thing you said about I always had plenty of weed and cash in my pocket all through high school.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Business opportunities, just different business than I had a paper route. I mean, it's just different. So,
yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, kind of fast forward. Once I started doing cocaine, that's what led me down, right? And that's a whole other long story, but cocaine is really expensive. I don't know if you know.
I never did cocaine. My friends did, but I came really close.
Okay.
But I never did. I don't know why exactly. I know why I didn't shoot up because I hated needles. I was always leery of them, but they were snorting coke and different things. And
leery, you would pass out.
Yeah, yeah.
You almost faint when you see other people with like IVs in.
The blood drive. You don't do that.
That actually was true for many, many years.
You're past that now?
I have been for several years, and it was the allergy shots for 5 years that got me past that whole psychosomatic reaction. Right. Yeah, I was just at the hospital. Somebody from our church, his dad died here recently, and he was hooked up to a bazillion tubes and monitors, and there was, IV and all kinds of stuff. Didn't faze me a bit, and that's been true for several years. But there was a time when
take it back. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Needles make me pass out. I have to sit down and get lightheaded, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So
you have this dysfunctional family, but you still got family-ish and people together. Drugs is a huge part of life and addiction.
Yep.
So now you find yourself like, what do I do in life?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And so, so after the coke, it was really expensive. So then my whole family didn't do coke. That was the party scene with my friends. It was methamphetamines was the drug. My whole family, like all my cousins, the majority of my cousins, the majority of my uncles, not my brother and sister. And so that was what I ended up, I remember the moment when I took that first hit, and I thought this is gonna be my story for the rest of my life, because that's what everybody's story was. I got 60-year-old uncles still using, and they've been using since they were teenagers.
Oh man.
And so then fast forward, I get in trouble with the law. I get in trouble. I just go out and again, like I said with coke, right? The moment I did it every single day for 4 months, however many months. The moment I did meth, I did it every single day for 4.5 years, except like every day. That's all I cared about. That's all I lived for, except for I got arrested a few times. So I did about a year of my life in county jail. So except when I was in jail, or except when I was so exhausted that I would fall out. So like where I would be, if I'd be at my family's house and I'd be on the couch and I needed to sleep.
Right.
So I never in 4.5 years went to go lay down and be like, oh, I'm going to go to bed tonight. Never.
Wow.
4.5 years.
Wow.
So then that got me into my last little bit of trouble. I went to county jail, and this girl shows up who I used with, and she was madly in love with this free on the inside Bible. And I was like, okay, lady. And right, and so it's like I knew her from the outside, so I'm like, oh, okay. And in jail, people get out, people come back in. I was in Spokane County for 5 months.
Straight? Okay.
Not Geiger, I didn't get sent. I got arrested on armed robbery for stealing scrap metal and biting somebody with my teeth. I was armed with my teeth.
That's serious.
I mean, it's hilarious. I
Serious
look back
weapon.
doing, I go, oh, you're so hilarious. Like,
Did you have braces on? Like
nope,
vicious
nope,
teeth?
nope. And then one of the officers made fun of me because I got some of my teeth pulled. You know, doing drugs, your teeth aren't the best. He goes, oh, well, they should let you go then. You're not armed anymore.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's the best.
That's a good line.
But in jail, I fell in love with myself. I got a job in laundry. I played cards all the time. I went to bed every night. I woke up. I made friends. I was fun, excited. Like, I was the life of the party. And I was like, well, I kind of like who I am. Without even knowing Jesus, right? Didn't know Jesus. Right. I liked who I was. I'm like, oh, I could have this life outside. Those were the things those were the thoughts that started coming to my head.
Was that the first time? Like, I mean, what was your experience like in high school, even though it was just more alcohol and weed? Was it the first time you felt like, oh, this is who I really am as a person?
Yeah, because even when I smoked weed every moment I could. So I wasn't sober.
Yeah, you weren't in tune with who
No.
you are. And
And as a teenager, do you really know who you are? Like,
right.
let's be real.
It's
You know?
that's what I was going to say. It's complex
Yeah.
and complicated
Yes.
to begin with. It's really
Absolutely.
hard. So, like, so you have this kind of who am I moment.
Yep.
I like who I am.
Yep.
And so how do you get to Jesus with
Yes,
the lady with the Bible?
Yeah, the lady with the Bible, really. So again, I used with her. She got federally indicted, big time drug dealer, whatever. Shows up, and like I said, people come in and out in jail, right? And so all the people who would come in, they'd open up and they'd start praying and reading. And I just remember thinking, you are so fake. Like, I don't even want anything to do with you. Until, like, God knew this. Until it was somebody I knew and cared about a little bit and trusted, where I was like, maybe. So and that was the only thought, was maybe there could be something where I'm like, oh, okay. So it's free on the inside. Have you guys ever heard of that Bible? It's the big prison ministry Bible, Jesus Bible. So then she starts reading it, bawling her eyes out to me all the time. So we did like 3 months together in there. And she could not believe the words in that, at the time, book. I'm like, okay. But I, in secret, in my room, in my cell. That's a room.
Yeah,
when you
it's
live
a
there
room.
5 months,
In my
it was like,
suite.
it's your life.
It's double occupancy.
Yeah, I read and randomly, it was Matthew 6:34. Do not worry about tomorrow, right? And in jail, all you do is worry about tomorrow. And that was the first verse where I was like, oh, it says that in there. That's kind of cool. And again, still just left it at that, right? So then I get out because I fell in love with who I was, or was like, wow, I kind of want this. Or who I could be, I guess. Maybe because I still didn't really know who I was, but I'm like, man, I'm tired of having to use.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, you cruise through it, and I know because
there's so much.
We're on a podcast and
Yeah.
time for refrain, but you didn't like go to bed for 4.5 years. Like that's just is a astounding thought to me to like, and it's so. I think it just helps us to understand how when we say, oh, people are addicted or it's controlling their life, like that's a different level where it's all consuming as far as what you're looking to get a fix. You're looking to get a fix.
Everything. And I'm assuming with my experience knowing meth, like that is very common with most people, right? When you use meth takes over your whole everything you care about. But coming, I think, from a huge line of addicts, I think that it's also in my genes and it was in my environment, right? I grew up with the addiction mindset where my mom was just strung out her whole life trying to figure out, and she didn't know who she was until recently, you know? And so, yeah, it takes over. And people who like if anybody is hearing this, like you can relate. Like if you have used meth, you can relate. Yes, it took over every single thing. Or currently it's taking over every single thing, right?
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's so much in it, right? I could talk for 40 hours about, you know, those experiences.
Right.
But
Plus, you're an all-in kind of person. So when you're like,
that.
oh, we're trying this drug, and then we're going to try this drug, or
Every day,
now
all
it's
day.
like I'm in on Jesus. Now we're all in on Jesus.
Yep.
So back to, you
good.
got out of jail,
Yep.
and
So I got out of jail, and I knew I didn't want to get loaded, and I knew I didn't want to go back there, right? Like because I could play pinochle outside of jail. What? So that's what I knew, but I didn't know I wanted God. So the girl who got federally indicted, she got out a little bit early, and she goes, "Hey, there's this recovery church. We're gonna come pick you up." And so she came and picked me up, and I would go to this church, and still not even believing it. I'm like, okay, what I did like is there was a bunch of other people like me. There was a bunch of other people who meth, heroin, all these different things that were just trying to figure it out, didn't want to use anymore, and didn't want to go back to jail, right? But yet they had a little extra. So then I had to do treatment and all this, and I had to get a slip signed. So I had to go to these small groups that were after the large group. So I went there, and I'm like, at first, I tried to hustle, and I'm like, "Hey, will you sign my slip?" And the girl goes, "Absolutely not. If you're gonna, I will sign it if you come." And so then I'm like, "Okay, whatever. I'll go." Still hustling, right? And in those rooms, the relationships that I saw with these women, I'm like, I want that, right? I didn't have that. My mom was still out there doing whatever. I had this girl, Taryn, that I met, that I loved, that I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. But I didn't have this awesome connection with women like I had back in high school. So I did have those relationship connections. But I'm like, I want that. And then hearing all the stuff up on stage, the pastor's talking, and just like this freedom. And I'm like, how do I get set? Like all these things that I was questioning. And then I'm like, I don't know, right? I kept going back to all those fake people that came into county, and they just no, that's not who I'm going to be, right? If it's going to be real, it's going to be real for me.
Were you free of drugs, like just on the physical part? Did you have like the withdrawal period, the coming off after being in jail? Did you have?
Yeah,
I mean, everyone's
so meth is
different.
And meth is a little different. You sleep. So I slept for like 7 days at maximum security. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not like a withdrawal, right? Like alcohol, heroin. But yes,
but
I had a
desire to go back to it is what I'm driving at. There's the physical part,
Yes.
like my body needs that drug,
Yes.
but then it's a spiritual and an emotional
Yes.
thing. It's just comforting as far as this is who I am, this is my routine. Did you have that after jail? Like,
So
as you're in this community of Jesus people, and you're
Yeah.
like, I like what they have going
Yep.
on.
So I didn't have the desire to use and completely remove from my body didn't happen until I accepted Christ. The desire to not want to go back to jail or use, it was more that. It wasn't the positive and the completely set free yet. I was still in this like wrestling with, oh my gosh, I just don't want to do that, and I was still like this.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't until I went through for about a year, 8 months, 9 months, whatever, and all these little things. I was going to the groups, and I was wanting that. And God was changing my heart this whole time, not knowing. And then praying for my mom. Mom's still out there freaking stealing scrap metal, doing all the dumb stuff that we all did. And then every single Wednesday and Friday, and I went to church because I did 100% in my addiction, right? 120. I did 120% in my recovery because I knew that. Like, I knew that about me. And they had Monday night groups, Tuesday night groups, Wednesday church, Thursday groups, Friday. Like, they had something every night of the week. And for me, I needed that at first. I needed somewhere to be. Right after I got off work, I needed somewhere to be.
Yeah, you got to keep the schedule full
so
you
I
don't
did
have
it.
idle time.
Exactly. So every Wednesday and Friday, this pastor gave you the opportunity to accept Christ. And for 8 months, I'm like, okay. And you go to the altar, and I'd go to the altar all fake, like, okay. But I was like in this moment of, man, why not? Like, why not at least say it, believe it for how I know how to believe it? And what in my head, I just kept thinking, like, the logical part of me trying to figure it all out is like, well, if it's not, it's not. Like, why not try? And then I said the prayer truly, like, by myself, not up there just thinking like what I know the enemy does now, right? Just takes your thoughts. But I was like intentional with, I believe this for me now. And so I'm like, okay. And I just remember thinking, which is emotional, but I just remember thinking, yeah, I could have that. So I said it and I believed it. And within a week, like little things started happening in my life. And it's so beautiful because that's how much God loves me. And I didn't even know that. Yeah. I still get emotional today because it's so overwhelming to think about his love for me. And so when I get up there and I'm like, man, I said it. And then like I shared about my mom, within a couple weeks, she was done, right? She was ready to be done. And we've been praying about her in those small groups with those women forever. And I'm like, can you believe that? Like, it was just, God knew that I needed those little faith strengthening moments. So it was like my mom. And then I wanted the lights to be on because I love the church, right? And so I gave $25 out of the $250 I earned that week. And then bam, I got a job I've been trying to get forever. And then like little things in my life, I remember all those ugly things I did to my friends I told you about. No joke, it was like a month after I made these things and it went through it in my step work. The girl who I hurt the most called me and said, hey, I'm ready to forgive you. Like, I am not playing. God showed up in the most powerful way. Within a month, I was like, do you guys know about him? Like, are you serious? And it's just his love. Like, he was waiting the whole time.
Right.
It was so beautiful.
It's how Jesus transforms people. It's not made up. When maybe that girl in the cell was crying with you, like when you read in the scriptures that God makes you brand new. You know, like the old is gone, the new has come. It's like, it's not just a theory or an opinion. It's for all of us that our life is transformed in dramatic ways.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful. And now it's like, I still get emotional because.
And how long has it been?
It's
how
been
long ago was
like
that?
11 years.
Okay.
Yep, 11 years. Almost like, and it's so emotional for me because it's so real. And any single person who's out there can have this exact same story. I heard it, and I don't know, it might have been you because I came here for 5 years, which I love this place. It's like, it's this gift. If I could give you this gift, I would, right? It's like, I can't do it. It's there for you.
Right.
What I have, I want everybody to have now. And that's just when the moment happened, right? Within those, you know, it was like a month really of everything being like, holy cow. And I'm like a very all in, like you already said. Yeah. And I wanted everyone to know.
Yeah. Right? Who doesn't want everyone to know?
Exactly.
Yeah. So kind of, I mean, fast forward a little bit, but you're part of that recovery church, and then I'm sure you're growing in your involvement there and leadership and helping stuff, and then part of Mission Church, and then helping plant Northbridge Church over the last couple of years, and getting that going. And a huge part of the launch of that is helping people find recovery, helping people with your same story. And I was just, I'm in the wrong spot here, but I just always am in awe of God when he uses our stories and uses all the junk and we think is not good to do something great with, right? And not that he wants us to go through all that stuff and he wants to save it from us from going through horrible experiences, but when we do go through them, then it gives us a different level of sympathy and empathy and be able to comfort one another and know people's stories. And I just, I'm trying to find it here. 2 Corinthians 1:4 just says, I'll start in 3. Praise be to the God of the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. I didn't read that well, but you get the point. What we've gone through allows us to experience how God loves us through all of that, and you can, you know your story more than anybody else, but like through all of that means this and that instance, that thing, and the other thing, so that we have this comfort from God and the grace of God and the mercy of God and the love of God, and then we go, oh, let me help some people. And as difficult as it is to work with people, at times you're like, oh my goodness, we always come back to that, like how much I've been forgiven by God, comforted by God, graced by God, shown mercy. It allows me, and your story allows you to help others in the same way. And so you and Matthew helping lead Freedom now, recovery at Northbridge. What has that journey been like the last couple of years, just really stepping into that role of
so it's
providing an environment on Thursday nights for folks, and
that's what we do. So on Thursday nights, absolutely out at Northbridge. It's been interesting because like people are so awesome, right? People are the most amazing. It's why you stepped into the pastor role. It's why we all do what we do. And then people are challenging. right? Like it's so, but in that is so cool because I understand when I was that challenging, when I was trying to get my slip sign and I was trying to hustle and work the system, and I'm like, God, right? Didn't necessarily put me through that story, but my story now is how I am empowered to be like, no, you can still come.
Right.
And I have grace and truth. I probably err on truth because I'm more of a drill sergeant lady, but he knows that that's where I should be.
That helps you. I mean, you could probably sniff out some hustling from like a mile away.
Yeah, my problem is I call it out. I go, ooh, I shouldn't always call everything out. That's what I'm working through. Hey, I'm learning and growing 12 years later. Right. But yeah, I think, I believe, and I know, and I trust God that he has equipped me with the skills to be able to love these people in this ministry well.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit of help for anybody listening, for us as well? That's not my story. I didn't go through it. I've walked with people through different seasons and, people closer to me walking through addictions and, extended family members having to go to 30-day inpatient, just different situations. But how do we best, help someone, like yourself in your story when you were, going through that 4.5-year stint or that season of your life? How do we help people find Jesus? How do we help them understand the love and grace and mercy of God? What's something that you find is super helpful for?
It's a really deep question.
I know.
It's if I had all those answers, I don't think we'd have any problems, right?
Well, what worked for you?
Absolutely. So, if I'm grace and truth is something I learned from Craig throughout this, and it's Jesus was 100% grace and 100% truth, right? And so, what I see often is family members and people, they want to love their addict family members or whatever, but they do it to the point of enabling, right? And so it's this weird line to make sure that you're not doing it so much to where you're leaving them cush and comfortable to where then they could stay in their addiction. If I wasn't, if I didn't hit my bottom, I would have never been able to get to the top, right? And so that's really hard. At the same time, you want to be able to love them, and you want them to be like, wow, what does Scott have that's what I want. What does he have? What's so different about him? And so people say that all the time to me. They're like, how do you get this energy? Where do you get this? How are you like that? And I'm like, Jesus, in my work environment, my play, everything. And so when I think about loving them, and people suck, right? People are so great, but people suck. It's making sure you don't enable them, but then show them the life that they can have. It's really hard with people in addiction, right? And then as many environments or resources and things that you can, yeah. Mm-hmm. If I'm being completely honest, sitting them down and trying to pray and thump the Bible over them, most of the time, that's not going to work. It's the life that they're going to see.
To that point, and to Scott's question, I'm just, as I'm listening, I'm very impressed with the story that is yours to tell, even though it's uniquely your story. Some people have your story, but a lot of people don't. Yep. But what everybody has is a story. Yep. Anybody who's ever come to Christ, anybody who's ever made progress with God's help, with addiction or anything, they have a story to tell. And our stories are powerful. To Scott's question, when you tell your story, people hear that and they think, you know what? I could have a story like that.
Absolutely.
What would it take for me to have a story like? And they start asking questions. They start hungering because that story is powerful. I have Revelation chapter 12 open here because it points out the spiritual power, the dynamic of our story in this way. It says, "Then I heard a loud voice in heaven," this is verse 10, say this, "Now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Messiah, for the accuser of our brothers and sisters," this is the devil, "who accuses them before our God day and night, has been hurled down." And that's a reminder that we have an accuser. So people in addiction don't need to be shamed.
Absolutely.
They're already feeling that self-incrimination, that self-condemnation, but they also get it from the enemy and probably from their peers. They certainly don't need it from a Christ follower.
Absolutely.
That's the devil's tactic, is to accuse and to point out people's faults and wrongs. But then it goes on to say, and that's where the grace of Jesus and his forgiveness comes in, of course, but then it goes on to say this, "They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb," that's God's grace and forgiveness, "and by the word of their testimony." There's just a powerful thing. I would imagine, I know this is true for me, and I would imagine it's true for you, that you've been encouraged hearing yourself tell your own story sitting here on the couch today. It's life-giving and it's energizing. Every time I tell my story, which I did out at Northbridge
I know,
on Thursday
thank
night. When I get through telling that story, it's like I'm empowered, and I hope other people are, because there's something. It's not just
it's the power of God at work.
It's the power of
and
God
we
at work.
hear
That's my
ourselves
point.
say it.
It's not just the story or
It's
the
not
words.
about Craig or Craig's story. It's pointing to the power of Jesus
Yeah.
and the Holy Spirit at work in our
And
lives.
and exactly. And when we tell stories that point people to Jesus, the Holy Spirit does something in them, but also in us.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's undeniable.
So
I mean,
good.
the fact of, like you talk about this idea of truth and this. I talk to students about it all the time in this context of like, people can argue with a whole lot of stuff. Even in your story, in jail, trying to argue like that's fake, that's weird. Like, but I can't argue with that real life transformation, that emotion that you're experiencing, and that life change. Like, people can't argue with the fact like, here's who I was and here's who I am. Like, that's
right.
crazy different. And it's like, yeah, that's powerful, and you can't deny that. You can deny a lot of things, and that's fake, and that's weird, and I don't believe that. I don't agree with that. But like, the power of your testimony is like, that's powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
Yep, and the power of God to change your life. And I know as we're wrapping up here, we touched on it briefly, but how dramatically different your story is today, and you aren't what you thought you were going to be that first day you took meth. Going in the trajectory of your family. Like you and Matthew met at the recovery church?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We met in a Bible study.
Yeah.
He shows up with that deep voice. Like, who that is?
That good-looking guy with a deep voice.
Yep.
You're like, hey. And so, yeah, his story, and
Yep.
God brought you guys together, and
Yep.
your life centered around Christ, and your two boys, and both your wonderful jobs, and then being part of a church plant that's helping reach people and
So
all
good.
over. And yeah, it's just so different, and it's all because of Jesus.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's so fun. So hopefully it was helpful for you if you're listening in. Maybe someone shared this with you and say, hey, would you listen to Sarah's story, that you would find hope and life in Jesus and not in other things? Or for all of us that are trying to help others find and follow Jesus, that we would be encouraged to balance that tension that takes the Holy Spirit's guidance for 100% grace, 100% truth. When is enablement there? When is helping hurting?
Yep.
We have to stay connected to Jesus because we don't know. It's not a black and white. You always do this or you don't do that. But how to love people really well. It's messy, but it's worth it.
Every minute.
Every minute is right. So, anyways, we appreciate you tuning in. Thank you, Sarah, for being
Thank you.
on the podcast. Matthew has been on the podcast, so now we've got the whole family. He was on
Back in the early days.
way back. Ben and I had Matthew on like at the Find and Follow, pre-Find and Follow. It was the old Theology Thursday. So, anyways, thanks for being here. We appreciate you. Thanks for sharing your story so transparently. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week. Following Jesus. Stay safe in the snow.